Greetings, everyone. My name is Jewel the Beetle, and today I will be reading you all The Walking Dead Hope, which is Chapter 13 of The Walking Dead Hope. The Walking Dead fan fiction written by Goofy Gomez from Wattpad. Goofy Gomez, before we begin, Goofy Gomez, if you're watching this, we want to thank you very, very much for giving us permission to read your story. Now, this is apparently a love story between Louis and Clementine. Now, since I've never played the Walking Dead franchise, I am not fully aware what it is at this moment in time. Maybe I'll get to know about this while I'm reading this? But, I don't know, maybe. But, without wasting any more time, everyone, let's get reading. You ready to go? Javier approached Louis, holding his bat in his right hand. He'd chosen a thick leather jacket for the occasion, along with a pair of denim jeans. Louis still wore his customary brown trench coat and green shirt. Charles was propped up against the door of the car beside him. He looked up at Javier and nodded. "Yes, I'm ready," he said, taking the chair leg and opening the door. Gabe stood next to his uncle, holding the special walkie-talkies. He handed one of them to Javier, who strapped it into his belt. Around them, Richmond's inhabitants moved about their day. 2 children ran past them, filling the air with squeals of joy. Like lucky kids, Louis thought. He saw Gabriel give his uncle a hug, requesting he come back home safely. The older man took his seat at the driver's seat and turned on the car, while the guards at the door lifted the gate for them to pass. Gabe approached the passenger's window and extended his hand at Louis. Louis awkwardly stared at it and then back at Gabe. "Good luck, Gabe. Good luck," Gabe said, nodding. "I hope you make it." Louis hesitantly took the offered hand, shaking it. "Thanks, man." Without another word, Gabriel walked away, toward the admit building. After a moment of thought, Louis called back to him, making him turn. "If Eileen and AJ come back, tell them to wait for me in my room, okay, please?" "Will do," Gabe promised, nodding assertively. As he went back to his station, Javi and Louis embarked on yet another road trip north. They had taken the night to rest up in preparation for today, which hadn't helped with Louis' anxiety. Clem had already been taken for 4 days, and he wouldn't be waiting any more. As the country road flew past them, Louis looked out the window at the rising sun of the horizon. He'd taken to regard the sun as a beacon of hope. To him, sunshine had always represented a brighter future, and if there was something he needed right now, it was light. He wondered for the 10th time what they could be driving into. For all they knew, these people were holed up in the military base with no way in or out. Positive thoughts, Louis, he chastised himself. He looked over to Javi, who was banging his head gently to the rhythm of the song on the radio. How they had managed to find a cassette of his favorite band, Javi didn't know. Even I don't know. After barely an hour and a half, Javi pulled over on the side of the road and parked it as close to the tree line as possible. Once they got out, he and Louis pulled a large green tarp over a Mustang. As per Javi's request, Louis was careful in placing the leaves and branches over the car. They stepped back, inspecting their handiwork. "Actually, it doesn't look half bad," Javi commented, crossing his arms. From up close, one could clearly tell it was a car, Louis knew, but from afar, it could easily be confused for a thicket of bushes. The pair turned and ventured into the forest, where Javi claimed the marked area would soon start. With the short press of a button, Javi let his nephew know they were in position. Louis and Javier walked through the small path created by nature itself. Its winding edges leading them far into the woods. They encountered the odd walker every few minutes. Taking care of them in a swift manner, Javi looked over to Louis, who had remained quite silent since they got on the car. "Penny for your thoughts, Louis," he said, smirking at him from the side. Louis sighed, looking down at his feet. I just had a lot on my mind, he replied, shrugging. Want to talk about it? Javi suggested, swinging his bat at yet another walker that got too close for comfort. Louis looked at the older man for a second, mulling over his troubled thoughts. Maybe talking about it wouldn't be the worst thing. What's up with Lizzie? He asked suddenly, startling Javier. What do you mean? You know that rescue mission we went on for Maggie? Yeah. Well, Lizzie got the bright idea of kissing me. What? Javi exclaimed, halting his pace. That was my exact reaction, yes. Composing himself, Javier resumed walking beside Louis. So far, they'd found nothing that resembled a base of sorts, so they kept their pace. They still had at least 10 miles of ground to cover before dark. A soft breeze picked up from the north, rustling the leaves up above. There was something so peaceful yet eerie about the way the trunks swayed with the wind. What did you do? What do you think I did? Louis said, looking over at Javi. I pushed her away and told her off. Do you think I was leading her on somehow? He asked. They neared a small, rather steep hill. Javier looked at the trees and up and at the top, nodding. I think we can get a better vantage point from that high ground, he said. As they began to climb, Javi voiced his thoughts. I don't think so, though. If anything, she just got the wrong idea. Ever since her sister died, she's been pretty withdrawn. I did notice she warmed up to you awfully fast, though. I'll talk to her if you want. No, that's okay, Louis replied with a small grin. The pair got to the top of the small hill, where a few large rocks were scattered. Louis climbed one of them. Taking out a pair of binoculars from inside his coat, he inspected the tops of the trees, getting the occasional glimpse of what lay beneath them. He saw nothing out of the ordinary. How's everything out here? How's everything out there? Javi called to him. Nothing really. Wait, he cut off, getting a visual on a line of smoke coming from a point near the eastern part of the perimeter. I see something. What is it? Smoke, he called to Javi, stepping back from the rock and handed the binoculars to him. 2 o'clock, 3 small pillars of it. Javi clambered onto the rock to confirm the information. Nodding to Louis, the pair set out in the direction of smoke, trying to keep an eye on it at all times so as not to get too close to it either. Javi briefed Gabe on their position and the current information, instructing the man to be alert to map out the possible base. They were barely walking for 30 minutes when they got to their first break. About 200 yards ahead of them stood a medium-sized wall. It spanned a distance of roughly half a mile in each direction. Most of it, Louis noticed, was covered in large metal sheets welded together. Javi called for Gabe on the walkie-talkie. Yeah, Gabe replied, the soft humming of static filling the air around them. We got a visual on the right arm, he announced, fumbling in his leather jacket for the map they brought. He mumbled something in Spanish under his breath. He traced their steps on the map, marking with the pencil the location they had left the car in and in the rough position. About 2 kilometers northeast from the car. So far, it looks like a standard wall with metal sheets, probably spanning the length of the base. We'll go around this and keep you posted if we find anything else. Sounds good, they heard Gabe's voice through the comms. Before the static whisked away. The pair walked toward the northern side of the wall, keeping a fair distance from it. The sun was already directly above them by the time they reached the edge of the wall. As they noticed it continue northward, they decided to take a break to eat. Johnny took 2 sandwiches from his backpack and handed one to Louis, who bit into it fiercely. He had barely been eating lately, and it was starting to get him. As his meal disappeared into large bites, Louis thought thought of his wife. How can someone as tough as Clem been taken? How had he let it happen? Of course he knew it wasn't his fault. He's been playing catch with AJ at the time, but the guilt still ate away at him. Should he have come with her that day? Wouldn't things have gone differently? Maybe, he thought ruefully. When he was done with the meal, he took a sip of the water bottle and stared absently at the wall. Beyond those walls was a group of people who mercilessly took people from their homes to trade for food, which made him sick. You think Clem's really in there? He asked Javi, who was taking his time with his sandwich. He couldn't think of his Clementine rotting away in the cell with no chance of getting out. And this is where I will stop for part 1. Stay tuned for part 2 of Jewel the Beetle Reads, Chapter 13 of The Walking Dead Hope.